you have to come into this with the right attitude. And when we work with clients, just like yourself, you go through a gate, and that gate doesn't open for us, or it shouldn't open for you, unless you're going to be prepared to be learning. You're going to be open to what happens and be flexible. And you got to be a decent person. Like, you can't be a landlord and be a miserable, nasty person, or this is going to not be a good business experience for you.
They knocked on the door and he said, "If you come in, I'm going to shoot." And I was just there this morning. Like that was like 3 hours after I left.
All right, let's get on the road. All official now.
All right.
All right, so we have Scott Shea with us. Scott Shea is an investor from Pennsylvania. He reached out to us to help him get into his real estate investment game after some other pretty cool history pieces with his career and hobbies that have turned out to be quite well for his experience. But we're just going to ask him some questions, see how real estate started and where he thinks it's going to go. And I just want to really thank you, Scott, for coming on the call and trying to help our clients and maybe future partners learn about what it's like to work with our team.
Of course, I'm glad to
So,
be here.
could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to where you are now, specifically how you found us?
Sure. I guess real quick. So I had a family business I worked for a while. Um, that was going really well, and what I was doing was a drafting and design, and then I started my own company doing drafting and design for similar companies in the area. That went really well. I took that money, I invested it into crypto. That did really well, and I got hit with a huge tax bill. And I was like, "This is crazy how much taxes I'm paying." Um, so I was talking to someone, and they were saying you should check out real estate. So in a nutshell, that kind of all led me down this path. And when I went to go check out real estate, I talked to my previous lender that helped me with my primary residence, and at this point I already quit my job to take some time off with my family, and he said that since I don't have any income, some W-2 income, that I just can't qualify for a loan. You won't be able to get a rental. You can't get a loan. And I kind of written it off for quite a few months, and then I talked to my neighbor who had a lender who said he was really good at getting him his property, his primary residence, and he could probably help me out. Talk to him. He's like, I don't know what that guy was talking about. He's like, he doesn't know anything. And he was like, you can do like DSCR loans. There's plenty of ways to get financing if you're trying to get into it and you have money. And so he gave me a couple books to read. The first one was Tax Free Wealth, of course, was perfect for me. And that blew my mind. I was like, this can't be true. Like, all this stuff about real estate. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is like things you can do and all the benefits of it. So from there, I was like, all right, I got to do this. Like, I'm ready to do this. So I just kept reading more books, kept getting as educated as I can. And I eventually got to a point where I'm like, all right, let me find some properties. And I kept looking around me, which I live in Montgomery County. Um, Montgomery County is very expensive. Um, all the books I was reading about trying to find like the 1% rule and all these different rules just didn't work in my location for what I wanted to find. I was mostly trying to find cash flow at first. Starting out, I wanted cash flow because I quit my job, wasn't making any money. I couldn't just be like, all right, I'm going to buy this property here and this expect appreciation in the future because yeah, long term that's probably better. But I was initially looking for cash flow, so I was like, all right, Montgomery County is not going to work. It's too expensive unless you put in a crazy amount down. Then I started looking at Bucks County, started looking at Philly, Chester, all the like surrounding counties. It was still pretty expensive, and I was still kind of. I feel like going to Philly, you can make it work, but like I didn't really want to go to the city because I felt like that was too big of a step for my first property. So then I went out like looking out in Harrisburg, then looking up at Lehigh Valley, and eventually I was like, all right, Lehigh Valley has all the right metrics for whatever I was reading, wage growth, population growth, everything I was looking to try to find. And so I went on Bigger Pockets, was looking for investor friendly agents, and Morrow Wargo Group popped up. I read your guys' bio. I'm like, sounds a little too good to be true. Let me reach out anyway. It was pretty much saying like, hey, we're here to help you from beginning to end. Whether you're looking for like an agent or contractors or what have you, every step of the way, I was like, it's exactly what I need. So let's just try it anyway. Who knows? And I think I reached out, and I think that I first talked to you or John. It was you first. Okay.
Yep.
And then I talked to John afterward, and you guys hooked me up with an agent. Um, and from there, I think I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I'm going to give you the whole thing right
I
now.
like it.
So yeah, and then like you guys helped me find some deals, helped me like hold my hand a little bit in the process, and then eventually found a deal that worked. So that's
Love it.
beginning. I
So,
mean, it's about 6 months, 6, 7 months of the whole process. Happened fast.
and sometimes it could be quicker, sometimes it could be longer. But when you say that it was too good to be true, what do you mean by that? I know there's a lot of stuff on the profile and people read things, but what do you mean by that?
So I was, I guess, kind of prideful and figured I could do everything myself. And, I could find the deal myself. I could find the contractors myself. I could figure out the leases by myself, like everything. I was like, of course that's possible. You could, but then you're going to waste time. And when you waste time, you're wasting money. And then when I was reading the bio, pretty much you said you could help with everything. And when you hooked me up with the agent CJ was very helpful. We talked for probably like an hour, first time on the phone, and he was just telling me about the area, what his history was. I told him about my history, and he's told me everything you guys were about. And I was like, all right, it sounds true. So let's keep going forward. And it was. I mean, every time I had a question, actually, sometimes I didn't even have a question. And like CJ or you would pop in and answer a question I didn't realize I needed an answer for. Like, and so it's been ongoing. And, you guys kept reaching out, seeing how things were going. I had quite a few bumps along the way that I know you know about, and you helped me out with some of those. And, we're here. I'm still here. Things are still going good for the most part.
Yeah.
Hmm.
When you first started thinking about getting into real estate and you reached out, we started talking. We obviously in the beginning kind of separate ourselves from other real estate agents by kind of being more of an involved person in your process and helping you build a business. Can you talk a little bit about that piece? How for us, it's just a very small portion of what we do is actually buying and selling the real estate. Can you talk about more of like outside of the sale? What kind of help and support did you get?
Yeah. So I guess for me, the biggest challenge early on was like finding the property. Like that, I think is the hardest part for anybody getting started. If they want to get into real estate, to find that first property, what it's going to be, because you can go, I mean, when you first think about real estate before any of this, it's like, okay, if you make money, you go buy a house, you rent it out, you make money, passive income, everything's good. It's not that easy. It's a
Nope.
whole long, if you want to do it and you want to do it right, it's a long process. Um, so early on, it was me trying to find the property, where I want to find that property. And when I kind of settled on like Lehigh Valley area up north of me, um, CJ was like telling every time a property came in, I think early on, he's like, here's a bunch of properties. Tell me what you think of these. Um, and I said like, hey, let's view 5 of these properties that seem interesting up in Allentown for me, Allentown and Bethlehem. And he went through them all before we went up there. You guys have like an evaluation sheet that shows you the breakdown of everything from, you put the property taxes in, you put your mortgage, principal, everything in, and it shows you um the cash flow and everything you would need to know in the future. And that sheet was very helpful because it shows, of course, it's all estimates, how much you should put towards vacancy, property management, what have you. So that part, even before going to see the property, see, there's like one CJ is like, it's not what you think. Like, don't go for that one because it's not what you want. She's like, I know what you want. It's like, this is the property. So that was helpful. And then going into all the properties, the same thing. CJ would say, hey, listen, like, this is he would just give me the pros and cons of it while we were there, as far as like an investor versus having an investor mindset versus like a homeowner mindset. It's got to be so different. It has to be because
Mhm.
you got to go by the numbers versus your emotions. Um, and I think he could tell. For me, someone's like, I wanted to jump the gun kind of quickly. Um, and then there was one property in Allentown I was put an offer in. The seller's agent, CJ, went back and forth and they were negotiating, and we finally put the final offer in for what we both agreed upon, the seller's agent, we never heard back from him for a couple of days. The seller's agent said, "Hey, he went on a bachelor's party, and we can't hear from him." And we're like, "Okay, whatever. That's kind of crazy." And then CJ's like, "Hey, this off market deal came through," which that was a cool part. CJ wasn't just looking on the MLS. He sent me this off market deal that was advertised. I guess kind of off market. It was advertised on Facebook, and I was like, "Okay, send it to me. I'll check it out." And I was like, "I guess I got to remember my Facebook password from so long ago." So I reactivated my Facebook, and I was looking through the pictures. I'm like, this is seems legit. It was three properties, three small multifamily properties, and I was like, I really want to check these out. And we went there, and I was like, can we put that last offer on hold because I want to put an offer on these properties. And CJ, I know was probably a little upset because he was probably just get this deal through, and he's like, oh, what did I do? But the really cool thing about this deal is that um I wanted to put an offer in asking. And CJ is like, listen, like, I think you can get it for lower. I think you can. So it was like $71,000 per door. He's like, I think we can do $69,000 per door. And I didn't want to. I was like, I don't want to lose this deal because like I'm happy with the numbers here and I think it's gonna work. He's like, listen, I'm feeling pretty confident that if we put this offer in at that price, we're gonna get it. He was right. They got right back to us, and I was like, okay, thank you. You just saved me
Mhm.
a good amount of money. So that's leading up to the buy. And then after the purchase, I had a couple of issues. Um, the one right now that I'm dealing with is I'm dealing with an eviction. You guys hooked me up with a good attorney. He's been spot on. I had a consultation with him. He's amazing. I had two attorneys I was trying to get hooked up with prior to that, and they were terrible. Like, like they're night and day compared to the guys you recommended. You also recommended an insurance agent that saved me over another $1,000 a year, which that was a nice little bonus. He's been great. Um, and then you had mentioned just I guess suggestions like stuff like cash for keys. These are all the things you're going to learn coming into real estate, and there's only so much you can learn so fast until you actually experience things. And so as some things get thrown at you, you go on YouTube, do whatever, try to read as much, but like you actually should go to someone with experience, which is you guys. And it's been very helpful going through the leases to help me understand every part of the lease, why certain things are important, why other things aren't important. That's been very helpful. So there's a lot to real estate. It's not just buying, renting, selling. It's there's a lot to it, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg. Um, it just keeps going on. It's cool though. I did not think that I would really enjoy real estate this much. Like it's already turning into a passion after not even a year. Like it's. You asked me a year ago that like, what do you think about real estate? I'm like, probably a cool way to make money if you have money. And then now I'm like, real estate's awesome because there's so many different avenues you can do with it too. So it's just cool. I like it. And you guys have helped a lot every step of the way. So I
That's great.
appreciate it.
The concept of building a business where the transaction of the real estate is only a small portion is extremely critical to us because it's not about just getting the property and getting the cash. There's a lot more than that. Like you have to have the foundation. You need to have an LLC or some sort of entity to protect your assets. You need to know what business is like. You need to know how to do books. You need to know how to evaluate. So you came into this with a lot of experience with those kind of things, but you learned very, very quickly how to run a real estate business, and you're just getting your foot in the door. And I have to bring up something, and I have to I have to ask you about this so people know. You say real estate is now an addictive thing. How great it is, and how wide and diverse it could be. But the money that you used to buy real estate came from one of the most polarizing and popular subjects right now in crypto. And I would just like to kind of highlight that it's not about how much money you have or where it is, it's how you use it. And you took an asinine amount of money in crypto and turned it into something that is literally going to provide you and your family long-term wealth and short-term stress and baldness with tenants, but from a crypto bank that could be really turned into something. So not to discount other types of investment vehicles, but there's nothing to say you can't use one to turn it into something else.
Mhm.
And if push came to shove, real estate is very utility based. You can move into it. You can live into the property. You could sell it when you have to. Have you found anything with your new portfolio? I'd like you to tell the story of the uh, the big surprise and the big issue
Yeah,
you had with this
yeah.
property within like what 30 days of closing.
7 days. It was 8 days. It was a week after. Yeah,
Oh man, that's
yeah,
even better. This is
yeah,
great. Yeah.
yeah. So it was, yeah, 8 days after closing. Um, I could say some of the stuff leading up to it. So there's a vacant unit that was there that I'm turning over, and I was just fixing up that morning, and I was changing all the locks, and the adjacent part of that building, the next unit over, I went to change it to all keypads, and I was there changing it. And this kid who's not the tenant, it's one of his friends that's been staying with him, which he wasn't on the lease. That was going to be another issue I knew. Was telling me I wasn't allowed to change the locks, and I'm like, "Hi, who are you?" And yes, like I'm the. Then I told them I'm the property manager. That was another advice you gave me. Is like if it's better to have them know you're the property manager versus the owner, you're not lying. You're just telling them you're a property manager because like there is a big weirdness. That's another thing. Anyway, so this guy, he's coming around me. He's got big bug eyes. This kid is like, you're not allowed to do that. I already changed the locks of the previous property manager. This is a security issue. I'm like, no, we're doing this. The owner wants to change the locks out. It's his property. I'm doing what I got to do. He's like, okay. So I changed the locks out, and I took the doorknob and everything with me in the other property while I was turning it over. And he comes over. He's like, "That's mine." Just all this stuff. Now it's constant with this kid. And I told you this is, yeah, before the incident. I'm like, well, what do I do about getting rid of this kid if he's going to be there for too long? Uh, I forgot about this part. I actually mentioned this kid to you. He's like, if he's not on the lease, because yeah, I said if he's going to be there for 14 days, that's what on the lease, because it hadn't been 14 days yet. Then you can get him out. There's another way he got out of there. So I got a call the next day from a tenant on it. So this is a 4 unit property. For on the other side, he got evacuated by a SWAT team saying that there's someone in one of the units holding a gun. And apparently, the story afterward is he called the cops. He said some terrible things I won't repeat on here. So they came in, they knocked on the door, and he said, "If you come in, I'm going to shoot." And I was just there this morning. Like that was like 3 hours after I left. And so they had guns drawn. They called the SWAT. I was following the updates on the website about like everything going on, and I was talking to my tenant and like having him update me. It stunk for him because like they didn't get back in there till early a.m. the next day, and eventually, when the drugs wore off for that kid, he came out and he gave himself up. They 302'd him. He went to jail, and I was like, "What do I do?" Like, I called the police station. They're like, "Hey, right now, if there's going to be any property damage, we'll let you know. But right now, there's nothing you can do." I'm like, "Okay." So I called you, then I called the attorney, like, make sure, like, like this is crazy. Like I the great intro to real estate, but I mean, getting into it, like it didn't turn me off from real estate because like I went into this knowing the downsides. Like obviously I didn't think there was going to be a possible shootout at one of the properties when I bought one, but I knew there's going to have bad tenants. They could have bad guests. There could always be issues. Even the tenant that got evicted, like there's cat pee all over the carpet, the scratches. Um, I knew that buying the property, so I was expecting that. But you never know what you're gonna get. You can have, I'm sure, like class A type neighborhood with a beautiful property, and you can get someone in there you can get a bad tenant anywhere. That's what CJ told me. He's like, you can vet them as much as you want, run background checks, but you actually don't know until they're in there. So that was a curveball. So, and then I have a tenant that's not paying. I just put a 10-day vacate. Like you told me the right process for what to do. If she doesn't pay by next week, I have to go there, start the eviction process. Um, so that's one thing I wasn't prepared for was inherited tenants. The one thing I didn't start researching until I got these properties was inherited tenants. like what you kind of do, how you deal with them, and most people had opposing view to me when I first went into. I'm like, cool, these I already have tenants here. They're going to be paying their rent. It's going to be an easy transition. I was way wrong. Um, I'm being thrown in the thick of it pretty quickly, so I'm going to know how to do it all after this. So yeah, inherited tenants can be a good or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. So I got best of both worlds, I guess.
When you inherit tenants, you assume they're good and their bad traits, just like everyone else. When you get in a relationship, um, you are that person's connection now. So something to keep in the back of your mind. You're learning this now. That doesn't mean new tenants can't be a problem. They
Mhm.
might be inherited tenants that are there for 30 years. So you're just learning a lot really, really quick. And it also helps that you didn't just get into a single family house as your first rental. You bought a portfolio from a professional investor with 9 units, right? From
Mhm.
day one. So you have 9 times the exposure, the liability, the tenants, the leases. We can look over every lease to the T, but it doesn't mean a damn thing, unfortunately, unless the tenants perform to them. So that's a great story. I just wanted you to kind of tell that
Yeah.
it's a trial by fire here, and things are long from over. So
Oh yeah.
um, that's great. Could you provide a little bit of insight to anybody who'd be willing to work, interested in working with us from a team perspective or from a real estate perspective? What are some things that you found from a support structure that might not exist in other agents or other teams who do the same kind of thing?
What? Yeah. So I just assumed going into this, and I still kind of feel that way a little bit, probably about other companies, because that you help me with the deal, close on the deal, and then we're hands off. And it's like all I'm left to it on on my own at that point. I think that could definitely happen elsewhere, where they're there early on, they get you their deal, and then you're out. You don't realize the ongoing support that you might need that clearly I needed. If you guys weren't there to answer questions, I'd be like pulling my hair out. I'd be like talking to my wife. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Um, so that could be the difference. I'll even tell you. So I went to one of your meetups. There was a guy there who was just kind of checking it out. We got to talking for a while, and he told me this was the first meetup I went to of yours. He said to be careful. He's like, be very skeptical of these things because there's a lot of investor groups that are just trying to get people's money and they don't actually end up helping them out in the end. He just said nothing of you guys. He's like, he was just there to check it out like I was doing. So, as other people who I guess he has seen other investor groups that have actually maybe not been good towards him or other people. So, I would say like you always need that skepticism. You never really know. And like I said, I read the bio. I'm like, this could too good to be true, but so far it's proved that it's been worthwhile reaching out to you guys.
Awesome. Is there anything you could tell to someone who's either a new or experienced investor, just generalized advice to someone who might not know what you know now? If they're maybe thinking about getting into the business or maybe in it trying to sell off, what's some just advice that you've learned, regardless of us or any other players in the game? What are some things you could pass on to them?
I guess it depending on how you are as a person. I would say take it slow, even though that's the opposite of what I did. um, and I didn't listen to my wife's advice either. She said you should take it slow, and I'm like, I think I'm ready for this. Like, let's do this. It can't hurt to take it slow. Like the worst thing that's gonna like you said, I had to amplify 9 times by going in by buying 9 units. There's almost no need to. If you don't need to, then don't do it. I think that would be the number one thing is like I don't know. Do as I do, don't like not as I say. What's the saying? Do as I say, not as I do, or whatever it is. It's
Mhm.
just take it slow. It would be my advice. And learn. Don't stop learning because there is a lot to learn. I'm like reading a book on flipping right now. There's like so many avenues that you can. And Bigger Pockets is a huge help. Um, they're a huge publisher for books, and a lot of people all their books are great. So I would recommend checking out Bigger Pockets. That's how I found you guys. Um, yeah, learning, taking it slow. I think they're the two biggest ones.
And your closing was about what, 60 days ago, somewhere in there, 2 months, almost 3 months now.
Almost 2 months.
Um,
Yeah, just about 2 months.
and are you taking it slow? Or are you already looking at your next deals?
Yeah, no, I'm
You
not
want
taking it
to.
slow at all. I actually, I am. I am. Like I could have, like, you guys, like, you're on the automatic listings. Like I see all the ones you guys post, and I look in the area still. I'm not. So I talked to my wife today about one that you guys posted. It was up in Tamaqua. And I'm like, man, that could be a good one. But I'd said, like, I'm just holding off. I did. So I am kind of taking it slow. That's your number one advice to me, I think, too. You keep telling me that. He's like, you gotta walk before you can run. There's no need to keep rushing it. So I guess I kind of am, but doesn't mean like I'm not looking.
Slow and steady. This is an investment. Anything that's quick money, that's the biggest thing. I think you learned this of all people. Um, Quick money is scary money. It might
Mhm.
work once, it might work twice if you're lucky, but after that, you got to be really concerned. So all these people online just preaching you can get rich quick. No, it's not real. And the one thing I forgot to ask when we first started was, why are you doing this? Why are you investing in real estate?
It's the long term, I say almost generational wealth. If you just, like, you had mentioned crypto, which I was into crypto. I spent a lot of time investing, talking to people in the space, but it is hectic. It is stressful. It is like everybody's looking for the quick buck there. And I was fortunate that I got into the right companies and it worked out well. But I was like, I can't keep doing this. I have a family. I have 3 kids now. They're all, my oldest just turned 4, and I'm like, I can't be investing in this volatile asset. And then after like doing so much reading, I think the first thing I said was taxes, but I think it's more about the the long term plan works if you stick it long term. And
Mhm.
I think it's so true. Like you look at it and it makes sense once you start learning about it. There's a lot of benefits to real estate. And for me, it's something I can pass down to my family in like a tax-free way. I know I can raise high taxes are a big thing for me. Um, it's That's probably what it is. Um, Being able to have something for me and my family in the future that is going to be there and it's going to grow over time.
And it's not easy, right?
It's not, but it's fun. I'll tell you that.
It can be fun. If you have the stomach and you're have an open mind, the biggest thing, like I we talked about this earlier, you have to come into this with the right attitude. And when we work with clients, just like yourself, you go through a gate, and that gate doesn't open for us, or it shouldn't open for you, unless you're going to be prepared to be learning. You're going to be open to what happens and be flexible. And you got to be a decent person. Like, you can't be a landlord and be a miserable, nasty person, or this is going to not be a good business experience for you. Real estate investing is a business. And you have to treat it that way, but your customer to your business is the tenant. You have to be a good person. You have to treat someone the way you'd want to be treated. And of course, there are those that, you know, take advantage of the system, but that's not all. Like, there's a majority of really good people out there, and you and your family, the way you operate, you're going to make a great landlord. And you're like the perfect example of a client that we're looking for, because you're a good person, you're doing it for the right reasons, you've heavily educated yourself, and you're not afraid to dive in on something and learn, cut your teeth, get burned a few times, limiting the exposure, of course. But like any good investment, this takes a long time. So I really appreciate you for being willing to, talk to everybody and tell them what it's like to work with us. Is there anything else that you wanted to share or kind of explain to anybody who might be looking to work with us?
Um, I would say the big thing is if you have the same attitude as me, is like you think you can do it all, just be humble, swallow your pride, accept the help, because that was probably the biggest thing for me. Because when I was starting to look for help, like I didn't want to. All I was doing was going on Zillow and Redfin all day, just like trying to find the right one. And I'm like, this is just gonna drive me crazy. Like, it's good to do that, to analyze deals. I was doing that early on, but then I got to a point where I'm like, I'm trying to make something work now and actually try to do something for it. So I would say, don't do it all yourself. You don't need to. Um, have like it's very helpful to have someone to help you because you know what you're doing. Especially me, like being into it so new, I don't really know. I can only learn so much until you actually have to jump into the deal. Um, there's a thing called analysis paralysis. You have to just take that next step. That's the biggest thing, is taking the step from just like constantly looking to actually finding something for you that works and accepting help and being humble, I think is probably a big piece of advice I'd give to people if you're like me.
Like, that's great advice. That's fantastic. Scott, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your friendship, your business, all the above. But in the end, we're the same type of group, whether you would have bought this deal or not. And that's what's different about us is we're just always genuine and straightforward. CJ's always going to continue to talk you out of bad deals, and that just has to be okay with you or anybody else as a condition of working with us. Um, and if it means there's no deals for a little while, okay. But like, I really appreciate your straightforward feedback and willingness to kind of tell your story. This is really, really good information. So
Mhm.
thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
All right, man. See ya.
Later.